So when it comes to Scream, I feel like a lot of people like to rank their characters and focus on like the ghost faces and kills and whatnot, but I feel like people don't usually rank like scenes as a whole, because Scream is full of like so many intense chase scenes and so many different like kill scenes, and it's what makes the movie so good. Especially the scenes that aren't the opening scenes or the finale scenes kind of get like not talked about as much. There's so many good ones in the middle that I feel like just nobody talks about. Obviously the opening scene is what gets the movie going. It's like usually one of the most well done scenes of the movie, just because that's what's going to grip people into watching the movie. But those in-between scenes are the ones that keep the movie going, that keep them from not being boring. So they'll have some downtime where the characters are discussing something, and then they'll throw in just some chase scene or something to get you back on your toes. So in this video, I'm going to be ranking my top 5 of what I consider the scariest scenes in Scream that aren't an opening scene and aren't a finale. Those are not going to be included because obviously, like, if I did, that would probably be like the entire list. So those are just the scenes they put the effort in to be scary. But I feel like there are a lot of ones that kind of get lost behind those. I want to focus on those little scenes that keep the movie going, keep the adrenaline up, are the major ghost face attacks, whether they're a kill scene or a chase scene, it doesn't matter. Just if it's kind of a scary, suspenseful scene is what I'm looking at. If you know any scenes that I don't mention here and you think they're scary, please let me know, because I know there are a lot and I'm probably missing some, but these are just the first 5 that come to mind when I think, oh, that's a scary scene in Scream. Or at least one that scared me while I was watching the movie. Okay, so here it goes, my top 5 suspenseful scenes in Scream. At number 5, I have the Wes Judy Kill scene, which is in Scream 5. It's the one where the Hicks are in their house. Sheriff Judy goes to get some food or something. She says she'll be right back, which is always a bad sign. I don't know if she specifically says that, but I'm pretty sure she says something like that.
Go take a shower. I'll be back soon.
Okay.
Can you put this away for me?
Yes.
Sheriff Judy leaves to go get food. Wes is left home alone. She gets a threatening call while she's in the car that someone's going after Wes. She turns around to go save him, and when she goes back to the house, she's stabbed, which she didn't even think, oh, maybe I should bring a gun, so that part's a little stupid. But this is also a broad daylight scene, which is an interesting choice, but I found this one to be a little bit suspenseful of, oh my gosh, knowing that he's inside now that his mom is dead outside and he has no idea what's happening. So then the real suspenseful part of the scene is when he gets out of the shower and he's kind of wandering around the house. The filmmakers actually mess with you a little bit by increasing the music when he's opening doors and closing them, and it's actually a little bit funny how they're like trying to make you scared or whatever. When I was watching this one in the theater, I was like, when's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? And I think that was a really unique way of doing it, and almost like it's almost funny. I was laughing when they were doing it in the theater, but I think it was really well done where he actually never found his mom. He never knew until he was attacked that, oh, Ghostface is like in my house. It was also a little bit sad because like his mom died and she didn't get to save him, and he never knew that his mom died. Like he never found out. But I think the scene was well done. It's not the scariest scene, but it's definitely one of the better ones in my opinion, especially for the newer movies. When I was making this list, I was kind of trying to get a variety of scenes from different movies. But this one is actually one that I think is kind of scary just because it's like a fear of mine. My number 4 spot is from Scream 4. It's the parking garage kill, which parking garages are scary in general. I'm surprised that they didn't use this idea before in another Scream. The scene is where Sydney's publicist goes down to the parking garage. She gets a phone call, so on, gets Ghostface. He starts threatening her. She tries to escape. She tries to get in her car. Then for some reason she gets out of her car. It's not starting, but still, why wouldn't you just call the police and stay in the car? But you gotta have them make dumb choices or else the scene isn't very good. So I understand that. She eventually runs away after some car alarms are going off, and Ghostface comes and stabs her, and it's actually an interesting stab scene. She's like staring him in the face while falling. And then to top it off, that's not the end of it, then later when they're talking about it, the police are talking about down on the ground, he throws her off the building onto a car. If she wasn't already dead, she's dead now. But I think the idea of just having it in a parking garage and being in that environment is already scary. Like, I hate parking garages. Like, I had to park one in the other day and I was like thinking of Scream 4 because I'm like, oh gosh. The setting on that one is 10 out of 10. I think it's interesting that they gave this scene to a character that wasn't very likable, because you kind of don't care if she dies, and then when you're in that scene you kind of put yourself in her shoes and you're like, okay, wait, I'm actually a little bit scared for her. Not everyone everyone will find this one scary, especially since it's in Scream 4, and a lot of people see that one as kind of a joke. But I really like Scream 4, and I really like this scene, and I think it's probably the scariest scene in the entire movie. In third place, I'm actually surprised that I had this one as high as I did, and I even included it, because I was thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, out of this movie, which one was I scared the most in? And it was definitely in Scream 6. It was the ladder scene when they're in the apartment. Ghostface ends up killing their roommate, who's actually, spoiler, is actually a Ghostface, so it's all kind of a setup. She is apparently dead, and Ghostface starts chasing them. 2 of them escape, and then 3 of them go in the other room where they're hiding, and they're trying to lock all the doors, and he's beating down the doors, and it's pretty intense. They're trying to block him out, and they're all bleeding out because they've been stabbed. And so they're trying to get out of the room, but there's no escape except a window, so they have to climb across a ladder to the other apartment, which is just really terrifying. I have a fear of heights, so that I don't know if I could do that. Probably would be able to in the circumstances, but it was definitely scary to watch just that part. And then they're also being chased, and you're like, okay, who's gonna die here? Because you know someone's not gonna make it and they're gonna fall off this ladder. It's not really a mystery of exactly who's gonna die, because I mean, you've got the 2 main characters and then this character that we barely know, so obviously she's gonna be the one who ends up dying. And why they would have her go last when she was completely incapable instead of Samantha, who was a completely, like, well-bodied person and wasn't injured at all. Why would they not have her go last? Whatever, they had to kill off this girl. So Annika starts going across the ladder, Ghostface catches up, and he shakes the ladder and she falls to her death, which was pretty, like, that was like an actual sad moment. Like, I did not, she's like crying as she's on the ladder, I don't want to die, and it was like really hard to watch. I don't usually get sad during Scream movies because I know it's all fake, and like they're usually like coded in comedy so that you don't feel as sad. Like whenever a character dies in Scream, they all kind of move on and it's not very realistic, but they do that so that you don't get really sad about the characters. But that moment and the opening of Scream 6, I was just really depressed for these characters who just died. But I did think the scene was really well done, where they're running through it, they're getting stabbed, they're going on the ladder. Like it was a pretty intense scene, and I think it was one of the better done scenes in the movie. Okay, at number 2, this is a classic. I mean, this is like what made Scream. I feel like it's the scene you think of when you think of Scream, but I think it's pretty scary just because of the circumstances and the isolation of how it feels. But my number 2 is the garage door scene from Scream 1. This scene, everyone knows it, but I'll say it anyway, is when Tatum goes to the garage and she's alone and she's grabbing drinks. The door locks and she can't get out, so she opens the garage door. She tries to escape. Ghostface stops her, and then she starts kind of talking with him, which is like an iconic moment. Then he starts getting a little bit threatening. He cuts her, and then he kind of chases her, and she tries to escape through the cat door, which she can't really quite fit herself through, and he presses the button for the garage door to go up, and she gets crushed between it. And it's just like that part where she's raising and you know where it's going, and she knows she's having to sit there knowing that she's about to get crushed. Like, that's terrifying. Like, I would literally, the dread is just so bad there. I do feel like this scene has a lot of, like I was saying about the other scenes, how it has a lot of comedy undertone of like the please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface, I want to be in the sequel, or that she's kind of taunting him. But I still think it did a good balance of being scary, even though it was a little bit funny. And I do like that they didn't make it so somber so that you're actually feeling bad for her. I mean, of course you're sad that she's dead in the movie now and her character won't come back, but like, I don't want to be depressed when I'm watching these characters die. Like, I want it to be kind of not as serious as like what it would be if it were being real. But yeah, I think this scene is 10 out of 10. It's super well done. Besides the Casey Becker scene, this is the scene you think of when you think of Scream for sure. Before I say my top scene, I want to say some honorable mentions. One honorable mention is the bodega scene from Scream 6. I thought it was really well done and really scary, but when they released the trailer, they had that entire scene in the trailer, so you knew exactly what happened basically, and you knew that no one of the main cast dies in it. I remember not really being on my toes while watching that just because I knew the entire scene already, which I think it was beautiful in the trailer, But yeah, it was just completely ruined. Like, they put the entire scene. I didn't have any scenes from Scream 3 in here just because I don't think there's one scary scene in that movie. Of course, being the times when it was made, there were issues with making scary scenes, and they did make it a little bit more funny. My honorable mention is the Candy scene. I don't even know what her real name is. She's in the room with all the Ghostface costumes, and she's having to hide, and then one of them is real, and she's like on the phone with the killer, but it's like actually Roman, but Roman is the killer. Like, it's a little later, that's kind of funny, but her hiding in the Ghostface room with all the Ghostface and not knowing which one is real, I think was well done, just not scary enough to be on my list. The CC Cooper scene in Scream 2, I think, is decently scary, just not scary enough to be on the list. I do like the where you see Ghostface coming behind her while she's on the phone. I think that's really well done. The car locking scene in Scream 1, there's a scene where she's in the car and she's having to lock it when the killer's running around unlocking because he has the keys. I think that's really well done. It's just so short, I didn't include it. The Gale Weathers chase scene in Scream 6 when she's in her house, I actually was really on the edge of my seat there, but it was more for the character that I was worried about than the actual scene itself. I think it was pretty cliche. The Chad chase scene in Scream 5 when he's outside, again, the ending of that was revealed in the trailer, and it was also kind of short, but I do think the fact that he was isolated outside made it scary. I think it could have been on the list had there not been better scenes. The Randy death scene I think is really scary too, but I literally think it's just when he's pulled into the van and killed, because I don't think the scene itself is really that scary, because I didn't even know someone was gonna die there. Like, it's more of like a shock death. The death is scary, not the scene. My number one scene, which is actually scenes because I couldn't pick between these two, and I think that Scream 2 is the scariest Scream, in my own opinion, because I think all of the scenes in it are really scary, and even though Scream 1 has some really good scenes, like I think the finale of Scream 1's better, I think the opening of Scream 1's better, there's a lot of time where they're having to introduce a bunch of characters and introduce a bunch of backstory because it's the first movie that they had to spend time doing, so there aren't as many chase scenes or death scenes throughout the movie. Scream 2 I have tied between the car scene where they're trying to go over Ghostface in the car and the Gale Weathers chase scene at the school when she's running away through the sound room to hide from Ghostface. Both of these scenes are kind of done at the same time in the movie. Like, I'm pretty sure they're literally back to back, and they're with two different killers. So it's really hard for me to see these as like two different scenes because they are so close and in the same exact moment in the movie, and they're both equally done so well. And I was like, which one am I gonna put first? And I'm like, I cannot pick. So I put both as first because they can count as one scene. It's my list. I'm counting them as one scene. I love the car scene because it's like number one horror moment where you're having to sneak over the killer who you don't know is dead or breathing or whatever. You don't know if he's actually awake. That scene, you're just on the edge of your seat, like, oh my gosh, they're gonna get grabbed, and then they don't. So it's really just like messing with you. And then Hallie does end up dying in the end, which is really unfortunate because you thought they were gonna escape. That scene was just like gold. Like, that was, whoever came up with that idea just knew it was gonna be a good scene, and you can't even like handle it. And then she hits the horn, like every single little cliche moment is in there, and I think it's really well done. I think that scene might be a little bit scarier in the way that it was written, but the Gale Weathers chase scene is just so good and it's scary. Like, I literally can't even pick between those because she and Dewey are attacked in the room. She runs off and it's like this really good shot of like her running down the hallway and she's trying to find an open door and she starts hiding in this room and she sees him and he comes in, and then it shows this like really cool shot of her hiding and him in the background. And as a film student, I just love that too much to not put it first on my list, and I think it's really just as intense. And she's trying to go through there, and then at the end Dewey gets stabbed and it's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And they had just gotten together, so it's really unfortunate. But those two scenes I think are just so good. I think that's literally the best part of the finale, which I actually really do like the finale of Scream 2, but I feel like that little moment where we got Sydney in the car and Gale in the school running away is just so good. And like, I could watch that moment like 100 times. It's so good. But yeah, those are my 5 or 6 top scenes from Scream that I think are the scariest. But there are quite a few that I didn't mention. I would love to know what other scenes people think are scary or what their top 5 would be. So let me know what your top 5 is. And yeah, I am done. Okay, bye.